F.W. Diaz, Immigrant Farmworkers in America's Food Production, 5 Things to Know. Note: on March 18, 2021, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, H.R. 1603, introduced by Representatives Zoe Lofgren, Democrat, California, and Dan Newhouse, Republican, Washington, D.C., Washington State, with strong bipartisan support. The bill would modernize the H-2A visa program and establish a pathway to legal status and citizenship for certain undocumented farm workers. The text of the bill is available here. FWD forward, maybe FWD.US official statement is here. Maybe farm workers something. They are culling watermelons. For decades, migrant farm workers have helped feed America, but the agriculture industry faces a chronic labor shortage that has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, and the conditions for and the rights of farm workers and their families must be improved. The critical importance of farm workers, including undocumented migrants, has never been clearer. Modernizing the temporary visa program and establishing a pathway to citizenship for long-term undocumented agricultural workers is urgently needed to protect farm workers and their families and ensure the future of America's essential agriculture industry. 1. Farm workers are essential workers, and most are immigrants. Immigrant farm workers make up an estimated 73% of agriculture workers in the United States today. Farm labor is absolutely essential work that puts food on our tables across the country, powers the economy, and supports our communities, from dairy farms in Wisconsin to strawberry fields in Florida and apple orchards in Washington. Altogether, food and agriculture sector is $1.053 trillion industry. Food and agriculture sector. Every state is involved in food production, but California and Iowa, Texas, Nebraska, and Minnesota make up more than 1/3 of total U.S. agricultural output value, while some sectors like livestock production are scattered across the country. Others are concentrated in certain regions, such as lettuce grown in Arizona or poultry farming in southeastern states like Georgia and Alabama. Poultry farming. 10 states responsible for majority of U.S. agriculture production. Total cash receipts for agricultural commodities by state in 2019: California, Iowa, Nebraska, Texas, Minnesota, Illinois, Kansas, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Indiana, other states. USDA Economic Research Service cash receipts by commodity state ranking. Agricultural work requires great skill and is relentless, exhausting, and can be extremely dangerous. All across the country, farm workers spend extremely long hours harvesting crops in all types of weather while risking injury or illness from heavy equipment or pesticide exposure. This year, workers in states like California and Oregon also face wildfires and record heat waves in addition to the threat of COVID-19. Underscoring the critical importance of farm workers, the Department of Homeland Security has deemed the food and agriculture sector as critical infrastructure during the pandemic. They deserve protections, not just the label essential. 2. Even before COVID 19 struck, America's farms faced a chronic labor shortage crisis. The American Farm Bureau Federation estimates that in total, U.S. agriculture needs 1.5 to 2 million hired workers each year. Farmers are struggling to fill these positions, and 2019, 56% of California farms reported being unable to find all the workers they needed over the last 5 years. This is partly because even when wages and benefits are increased, there are still not enough U.S. citizens applying. The current agricultural workforce is also aging, requiring younger workers to replace them. Immigrants have filled these shortfalls in the workforce for decades, but in recent years, fewer immigrants are coming to the U.S. to work in agriculture, a result of current U.S. immigration policy and rising incomes in Mexico. The labor shortage puts American agriculture at a competitive disadvantage. American growers' inability to find dependable sources of labor is a major reason for the significant increase in the amount of fresh fruit and vegetables that are imported into the U.S., costing billions in sales and tens of thousands of jobs. Without workers, crops wither in the fields, contributing to food waste and millions of dollars in lost production. In 2020, this chronic labor shortage was further exacerbated by the COVID 19 pandemic, which forced employers to keep workers at home and restricted access to foreign born workers that farmers had been planning to employ. 3. Legalizing the undocumented workforce is an economic and moral imperative. Undocumented farm workers make up approximately 50% of the farm labor workforce. Without their hard work, millions of pounds of food would otherwise go unharvested. While these workers pay taxes and contribute to the economy, they are not protected by U.S. labor laws, and they live every day under the threat of arrest and family separation, all while working in extremely difficult conditions. Despite lacking a legal immigration status, these workers and their families have lived in the United States for a long time. In general, the majority of undocumented immigrants have lived in the U.S. for more than 10 years. Likewise, the average farm worker has worked for their current farm employer for 7 years, and more than 80% of hired farm workers work at a single location within 75 miles of their home. They are very loyal. 7 years, more than 80%, within 75 miles of their home. Majority of America's farm workers are foreign-born, more than 50%. Percent breakdown of hired farm workers by immigration status, 1991 to 2016. Share of total workforce. U.S. born, authorized foreign born, unauthorized foreign born. I see. Relying on large numbers of undocumented individuals to fuel an industry is bad policy for workers and employers alike, but forcing them to leave would be even more devastating to our food supply and fundamentally unfair, given what they've contributed. For example, the dairy industry estimates that retail milk prices would nearly double if farmers lost their foreign-born workers. Overall, agricultural output would fall by 30 to 60 billion dollars. Above all, the United States has a moral imperative to find a solution for undocumented families who have called this country home for so long, who have contributed greatly with little recognition, and who have more than earned their place in the American story. Called this country home. 4. The temporary H-2A visa program is important, but it is not enough. The H-2A temporary agricultural worker program is the primary way in which immigrant workers can legally perform short-term farm labor in the U.S. U.S. farmers can sponsor workers for the temporary employment visa if sufficient numbers of domestic workers are not available. In 2019, about 258,000 migrant workers were granted temporary H-2A visas, up from 48,000 positions certified in 2005. But less than 4% of the total number of workers that are needed for food production. Florida, Georgia, Washington, California, and North Carolina were the top 5 states where the most H-2A workers were employed. Demand for H-2A visas has tripled over the last decade. Count of H-2A positions certified by state 2007 and through 2016. Arizona, ARAZ, New York, Kentucky, Los Angeles, LA, I guess, Louisiana, North Carolina, California, Washington, Georgia, Florida, other states, Arizona, damn, fuck. AZ is Arizona, AR stands for Alaska? AR. Where is AR? AR. AR. Arizona. Arkansas. Okay, AR stands for Arkansas, I guess. Not AK. AR. Arkansas. While the current H-2A program helps address labor shortages, more needs to be done to ensure farm workers have access to basic rights and protections from persistently low wages, overcrowded or unsafe housing conditions, and lack of access to health insurance. Additionally, farmers say utilizing the H-2A system is an expensive, slow process. On average, workers arrive to pick crops 22 days late. Farmers in year-round sectors like dairy or pork production cannot even participate because visas are only available for seasonal workers. 5. Americans would benefit enormously from a stable agricultural workforce. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, CBO, has found that providing legal status to current undocumented workers would have a net positive effect on the federal budget, increasing tax revenues, The CBO has also found that legalizing the undocumented population would boost economic output and increase employment for U.S. born workers. Additionally, stabilizing the workforce would help U.S. farmers stay open for business, keeping, keeping jobs available for U.S. workers and pushing back on increasing food and production costs driven by the shortages. U.S. Congress should allow undocumented farm workers who have been present in the U.S. to adjust to a legal status. This would allow farmers to maintain their current workforce legally while also allowing undocumented immigrants to come out of the shadows, earn a fair wage, be better protected from exploitation and abuse, and fully participate in the communities they have called home for years. For more on these topics, follow Andrew Moriarty on Twitter at Moriarty. Footnotes. As the United States Department of Agriculture Economic Research Service explains, agriculture, food, and related industries contributed $1.053 trillion to U.S. gross domestic production (GDP) in 2017. Thanks for listening. That's it. So today's article was Immigrant Farm Workers and America's Food Production. 5 things to know. By whom? Well, by who are you? I guess. By what's his name? The guy, not a random gay guy, but real good. And Moriarty. Okay, by Andrew Moriarty.